Hey, everybody, this is Mike from A to Zen. I have a special guest with me today. I have Nevada State Senator from Clark County, Scott Hammond, with me. We were just going to talk, and we've kind of struck up a little bit of a friendship from you buying some records here in the store. And I was hoping you'd come and sit down and talk and do one of these. And I just wanted to know what makes you do what you do,
Well, first of all, it has been a great friendship, and my kids are always saying you talk to everybody, and I said, yeah, because you never know what's going to come of that,
right?
and it's been an amazing, fruitful, and very beneficial friendship right from the very beginning. I think what motivates me in doing what I'm doing, it's certainly not the politics. I have a degree in political science.
Right?
I have a master's in political science from UNLV. But it's not like I wanted to get into politics. Matter of fact, I told my wife for many years, I just want to study politics, look at the structures, compare and contrast the systems from different countries in here. But she always thought I would be good. She's the one who kind of pushed me into getting into politics, running for public office. And so if anybody's really, really upset with me, you have my wife to blame. So I'll let you know where she's at. But and she said, it's just because you have a sort of an easy manner about you. You're even keeled. You don't get upset about a lot of things. You don't get depressed about a lot of things, and you just kind of approach it as what can we do to get things better around here? And I think a lot of that is due to the fact that my upbringing. I was a military brat. We traveled around a lot. My mother was married to some. My father was in the Navy. When she divorced and remarried, there was a gentleman in the Army, and we ended up in Alaska. And to be honest with you, that was really sort of growing up in Alaska was sort of that formation of who I am today.
How many years did you spend in Alaska?
We got there at the end of my second grade year. So really it was third, fourth, all the way until I graduated, about 2 years into college.
So most of your school years.
Oh, all of them. I
Wow.
graduated from a place in Alaska, a little place called Delta Junction, Alaska.
Little town, I imagine.
Little town, 6,000. It was right next to a military base, Fort Greely, Alaska. And I love Alaska because one thing that we were taught from a very early age is you see somebody in trouble, pulled over on the side of the road, maybe a family struggling to get wood in for the winter, any kind of, you look around, you pay attention to what's going on, not because you're nosy, but because you want to help. And you never leave anybody stranded on the side of the road. That's just one of those givens in Alaska. You never pass somebody who looks like they're in need of help.
So this has formed the personality that I am becoming acquainted with because you get into more metropolitan communities, you don't even know your neighbor's name.
Not me. Not me. One of the things that we, as a family, one of the things we did, it's so easy in Las Vegas to drive your car into the garage, go into the house,
Right.
and never talk to anybody.
Yep.
We decided a while ago that we were going to, my wife and I and the kids, from at least once, sometimes twice a week, we just start walking around and meet people in our neighborhood, and that conscious effort really paid dividends because you get to know the people in your neighborhood. I mean, I knew everybody in my cul-de-sac. I just grew up that way, right? I mean,
Right.
we'd have fish fries at the every once a month. You go out there and you catch your halibut or your salmon or your trout or your grayling, whatever.
Mhm.
We had Arctic grayling up there all over the place, and we'd catch a certain amount, and then we'd all get together and say, let's do a fish fry, and people would bring out 2 or 3 barbecues, and all of a sudden everybody was invited. That's kind of what I grew up with, and it's that and the idea of always giving service. One of the things that has been instilled in me, and it's also part of my religious background, is um, whenever you're in the service of your fellow man, you're in the service of your God. And
Wow.
to me, it's when you give service, you forget who you are, you do other things for other people, and then you find out who you are. If that makes sense, you find out who you are because you don't worry about you don't worry about getting, you worry about making sure other people's needs are taken care of. And that's when you really find out who you are and what you're about. And so my wife and I think we've embraced that. Um, you see that in the way we approach life. We always knew that, we weren't just going to have kids, we're going to adopt. I think it's his daughter.
Maybe.
I never say no to my kids either.
Am
I
I
always
picking
answer.
them up at school or where?
Yep.
Enjoy your hike. Let me get back to what I'm doing, and I will call you back in a few minutes. You were fine right where you're at.
I like his desk, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay? All right. I love you, kiddo. Okay. Sorry about the interruption.
No worries.
11-year-old.
It's okay. We have the power of editing. So,
Yeah, and I never refuse my kids when they call either. So.
Nope. I would have muted any other call, but that's
exactly.
That's
It's
in
like,
my-
I don't know what they're doing or what's happening, so I would never say no. Oh,
So,
all right.
all right. So we were talking about community and what
Yeah.
that drives you and noticing.
So again, it's about giving back. I mean, my wife, I remember my wife one time said, you're late a lot of times. And I remember the answer I gave to her, and I always give it to everybody. It's like, I know I'm late and I'm sorry, but sometimes when I'm in the middle of doing something, I'm having a lot of fun doing that. I don't know if I'm going to have as much fun doing the next thing as I am right now. So I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave what I'm having right now. So if I was coaching basketball and I was at a practice and we're having a good time at practice and everyone wanted to stay like 10 minutes later, I'm just going to keep doing that. And my wife's like, that's you. That's you. I get that. You want to enjoy the moment. You want to be around people and you want to enjoy the moment with that person. And she says, that's why all your students loved you. That's why you get along with a lot of people, because they know that you enjoy being with them.
You profoundly accomplished that. We've known each other for a limited amount of time, but just based on those principles, me as an individual, I mean, it was we by chance met, you're shopping for records. Now I'm playing basketball. I mean, you've literally impacted my well-being and existence with the openness of getting to know who I am. And that wouldn't occur if that wasn't you. And I run by those same principles quite a bit, actually.
Yep.
And so I'm aware of how, one, you're just happier, dude. I'm happier if I'm actually paying attention to everyone else, by far. But the impact that it actually has, that there is residual, because it's not just an acquaintance. Suddenly I'm out and my body hurts and it's all good because you invite me over to play some hoops and here we go. And I'm very, very appreciative of all that. And to know somebody's actually in office doing some things like that is actually makes me smile.
I'm glad to hear that. But you're right. I see the same thing in you. Like, I came this past Friday to your open mic, and you had some folks here, some singer-songwriters, and I saw the way you were around them. So somebody else is singing, and they're singing the song that they wrote, that they invested their time in, that they feel connected to, and you respond. I can see the way you're responding to them. You're enjoying the fruits of their labor. You're enjoying what they've produced, and you can see it in your body language, and you can see it with the folks that you seem to cultivate here, the people that seem to gravitate towards your shop. They kind of felt that way. And my daughter, my daughter was here. My 12-year-old was here. And she said, that was a lot of fun. We were only here for like an hour. She said, that was a lot of fun.
Did she enjoy herself? I saw
Yeah.
you guys come in and stuff while we were doing
She
it.
enjoyed it tremendously. I did a little video of you singing and sent it to my wife, and she's like, that seems like a great
It's a pretty chill environment.
Yeah, it was really good. And so that's kind of what I want to bring. And I know, in being in politics, a lot of people think you have to be ruthless. That's not necessarily true. You still have to cultivate and develop a relationship of trust with people.
Right.
And how do you do that? You get to know them. You care about them as a person. You get to know what their happy things are. You get to know what makes them, what motivates them, what makes them happy, what makes them want to do what they're doing. And once you develop that relationship of trust, you can accomplish a lot of things, especially, this goes back to Ronald Reagan, when you don't care who gets the credit.
Right. So this is your last term, right?
Yeah.
So what's the things you're most proud of while you've been in?
Honestly, it's gonna sound corny again because I'm gonna say it again, but it's the relationships I've developed over the time. I've been in here it's been 13 years, and looking back at all the people I've met, former colleagues, lobbyists, because a lot of people think they're bad people. I'm like, no, lobbyists are good people doing good work. You just have to make sure they don't go bad. Just like legislators, right?
Okay.
But just the people. I think that I'm most proud of the fact that when I get out of here, I think there's going to be a lot of people who just say I'm glad I got a chance to meet Scott Hammond. along the way, I've passed a lot of legislation. I did pass the education savings accounts in 2015. It was the first, we were the first state to actually have nearly universal education savings accounts, which really was what we did was we put Nevada on the map, and we also said to everybody, the money needs to follow kids instead of the institutions. It needs to follow kids. And we started that conversation here. It caught fire here, but it actually spread to other states, and you see a lot of other states who have passed it.
Mhm.
I had some opposition, and the opposition and finally, got us in 2019 when it was removed from the books. But I'm very proud of that work. Very proud of the school choice legislation that I've passed, the charter school, micro school stuff that I've done, private school stuff that I've done. These are all things, and of course, I've also been there when we were trying to raise money in public education. So I've done a lot in public education in general, or education in general. Um, I also really liked.
I'm a beneficiary of school choice and all that stuff, though, so I'm actively appreciative of those
And
particular acts of legislation.
I told my kids when I first ran and I won, my students thought it was the coolest thing, right? But I have high school students, so it was, and they thought it was the coolest thing. And a couple of years later, they said, "Well, is it as cool a job as we think it is?" And I go, "Not. It's not like super sexy. It's not like people recognize me, at the supermarket. I still had to at the time change dirty diapers and take out the garbage and do all that kind of stuff. I mean,
Right.
that's who I was, but." It is once in a while. It is it is true that from time to time I'll get recognized somewhere, and it's usually for the school choice stuff that I've done. People will recognize me for that. But a couple years ago, I did a bill. Um,
That is
for
a big deal right now. Sorry.
it is
It is a big
it's
deal.
it's a huge deal, especially after COVID. Right,
Yep.
everybody's going, how do we avoid the problems we had during COVID, where parents were not given many choices? Well, this is one of those things. If you have school choice, so you're going to have more options if something like this happens.
I was able to execute those options. That's why I'm appreciative that it's available.
Well, and then a couple of sessions ago, I helped pass a bill that really created more opportunities for kids with disabilities. I grew up, and when I was a junior in high school, they asked me if I wanted to help out in what they call the resource room, right, with the kids who had learning disabilities. And in particular, I worked with a young man named Stephen Wrigley. Stephen had Down syndrome, and so he had a hard time reading, math in general, and so I did a lot of reading with him, and I ended up staying there for 2 years, junior and senior year. I was his tutor. I'd go down there an hour a day, every day, 5 days a week, every day for the year. And I worked with Stephen. Then I helped him with the Special Olympics. What I found out later on is that kids like Stephen Wrigley, if they need some sort of transplant, liver, kidney, whatever, that a lot of times they were passed over because their life expectancy wasn't expected to be very long, and so there were a lot of laws that prevented these individuals from getting transplants. And I thought, that
Wow.
I know it was heart wrenching because a mother who had a baby with Down syndrome came to me, and she told me, what was going on in other states, and she said there's a movement to change this because our medical advances are significant, and the expectation of longer lives is much more likely now than it was in the early 1900s, 1920s, 1940s, and 50s. And so I passed that. We ended up passing that bill. We got that bill passed. It became law. And so basically, you're not allowed to discriminate based on that condition. You're not allowed to, say no just because they have a type of disease. And I was really proud of that because I always thought of Stephen. Unfortunately, we lost Stephen this past December,
Mhm.
and he was almost 50 years. I think he might have been 49 or 50 years old. So the expectancy was probably 30, 35. And so again, I'm grateful.
When did that legislation get passed?
I want to say it was 2017. It might have been 2019, actually.
So part of my personal story, which you're not aware of as of yet, is my first wife actually passed away in 2001. And she passed away from a disease that is primarily a pediatric disease. And we actually were forced to travel to, and it ultimately she passed away, but we had to go to Minnesota because nobody would give her, she needed a bone marrow transplant. And we could not qualify for anything because of life expectancy. They were like, no, everybody else is on top of the list. She's already outlived what she's expected to live for the illness that she has. I have personal experience with this.
Yeah.
I mean, real road, real life experience. We literally had to relocate to Minnesota to even get qualified to try and
I
do
believe that this law would have helped out because I think we passed it in 2019, and it was specifically written to make sure that people didn't use that as a criteria. That you couldn't say, well, your life expectancy is X, and so therefore we can pass you over. We can't do that anymore. Not allowed
No,
to do
I
that.
dealt with that real time
Yeah.
in my own house. Literally walked through it.
Well, that was one of my most
Wow.
one of my prouder moments, actually.
So I had no idea because
Yeah.
that's a significant piece of legislation, and I actually have on the ground experience with that.
Another thing that connects us.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get into some happier stuff. You talk a lot about the A's.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that. So what's going on with that?
So I'm a big baseball fan. I'd love to see it, baseball in Las Vegas. And I know there are, I understand that it is heart wrenching to have a team so entrenched in an area with a huge fan base to up and then move away.
Right.
My brother-in-law is a big, huge Los Angeles Rams fan. When they left and went to St. Louis, he said a part of him just got ripped out. But he adjusted and still, was a fan of the Rams. So I understand that part of it. However, economically, and a lot of what happens in just down the street here in Carson City, on Carson Street, at the Legislative Building, it's business. And we have an opportunity to bring baseball to Las Vegas. And I think Las Vegas is proving itself to be not only the entertainment capital of the world, but also the sports entertainment capital of the world. With the addition of the Raiders
Right.
with the Knights now has been tremendous. We put that deal together where we created Allegiant Stadium, and that building is paying off. I mean, we are the fruits of that particular building and the economics of that building and diversifying into a football town have been tremendous, not only for Las Vegas, but the rural areas around it as well.
I'm sorry, Scott.
That's all right. That's what we pay the editors for, right? As it keeps them in business. So here come the A's. The A's are like, we want to relocate. And I can't hardly blame them, right? I mean, Oakland's a tough place to be right now, and so they want to go into Las Vegas. Well, they need Major League Baseball invariably will ask that there be some public money involved because they want to make sure that the community has skin in the game. And so almost all, most of the deals that you're going to see in Major League Baseball from here on out they're going to ask for public money, a small amount, a large amount, whatever. This happens to be about 23% of the overall budget for the stadium, what they're asking the public for.
So they're going to build a whole new stadium.
They want to build a whole new stadium. They had a couple different sites in mind. Right now, the site that they have in mind is on Tropicana, Las Vegas Boulevard. The legislation.
The Tropicana?
Yeah.
Going to come down?
Tropicana.
Wow.
Yeah. And right now the revenue that we're getting from the Tropicana is almost, it's minuscule. It's been there a long time. And I know a lot of people would like to, they're nostalgic and they don't want to see something go, but I mean, that's Las Vegas, folks. You go there to Las Vegas and almost everything is being reinvented every 3 or 4 years.
Yep.
That's how we get people to come back. Every 2 or 3 years, there's something new to see.
Sure.
So they wanted to build it there. And so the bill that we're dealing with right now, it is not dedicated to any particular site. It's agnostic to the site. It's just basically saying, we would like to build a stadium. Here's the stadium. And we saw a rendering of it. And then here's the deal, right? They have all the financial schematics, I guess, if you will. the waterfalls and how do we pay for it? How do we keep money in reserve? How do we, all that kind of stuff is in there. And so it doesn't matter where the site might be. We're just basically saying we are supportive of this idea. We're going to pledge a certain amount of public money into this. And because that's where we are right now. We had a hearing the other day. It was about 5 hours long and very long meeting in finance. And now we have to get it out of the Senate. And we need to get it out of the Senate by Friday in order to get it over the Assembly for the Assembly to have time to get it out by Monday. If it doesn't get out by Monday, the measure dies. And
Wow.
we either come back in a special session or we just don't bring it up again.
It's not a lot of time. It's been in the works for a while, though.
Oh, months. This has been in the works for a much longer period of time than the Allegiant Stadium deal was. We got called up in a special session for Allegiant, and I think it was like a 4-day. Here's the bill. Here's the deal. All the ramifications, and then by the 4th day, we were put on the record, yes or no.
So, speaking from a layman's point of view, how does the state of Nevada benefit from having major professional sports teams? Because now the Raiders are here, but we went years. We didn't have any really major sports teams. So what benefit is there to Nevada to suddenly be the home of 2 major franchises? 3 with the
3.
Knights, if you're
Yeah.
actually...
Well, and that's a good question. I think economists could probably explain it better than I can. I just know enough to be a little bit dangerous, right? Look, there's that ripple effect. So, first of all, tourism increases. You have more visitors to the area. People are coming in. Look, it's a huge draw. I'll talk to people at the airport all day long. If we had baseball here in the state of Nevada, if we had baseball here in Las Vegas, and you happen to be here at a convention, would you go to the game? Absolutely. I definitely would spend money to go to the game. It draws people. Allegiant Stadium, for one, it is a great place because people in Buffalo are like, I'm going to go to one game. I'm going to go to one game outside of Buffalo, right?
Right.
I watch every game here in Buffalo.
We'll go to
I love my
Vegas.
team.
We can...
I'm going to go out one game outside of Buffalo. Where do I got to go? Well, they're playing Vegas this year. Okay, that's where
Go
I'm
to
going.
Vegas.
And they usually come and they don't just spend one day. They spend about 3 or 4 days on average. And so the economists are looking at all that. It's all ancillary, right? Like the income from that. So they're here for 4 days. How much did they spend on the hotel room? How many times did they go to restaurants? How much money did they spend in stores, sales tax and commerce tax? I mean, all that stuff is added up, and we find out exactly the impact that the Raiders have. But that's just one part of it. Then you have...
Well, in Vegas, I would imagine, has the infrastructure. I would imagine moving forward, there's a potential of hosting a Super Bowl.
We're hosting it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You didn't know that?
No.
We're hosting the Super Bowl. I don't know if it's this year, but it's either next year or the year after.
Yeah, it's something like that. Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember reading something.
Because
about it.
Vegas has the infrastructure to
Oh, yeah.
absorb all that.
Like nobody has the number of hotels like we do right in that
Right.
one spot. So where they're putting the A's stadium right there on Tropicana, Las Vegas, you got the MGM right across the street. You got the New York right across kitty corner.
No,
from it.
ideal.
You got the Excalibur. You've got the Mandalay Bay. You got about 5 major hotels right there within walking distance. And then you have the monorail that goes right by it. And the monorail goes all the way down to the Sahara, if I'm not mistaken. And so you've got another 4 or 5 major, 6 or 7 major hotel rooms right along that. And then you take in consideration, because people are going, what about parking? RTC, our regional transportation system down there, they have perfected these bus routes that go from outlying areas of Las Vegas into games. I can get to a Knights game in 15 minutes from my house. I can get out of there and be back to my house in about 20 minutes as well, 15, 20 minutes.
See, I haven't been down there, and I don't do that. But I'm a big motorcycle Supercross fan. We used to go to Vegas for the Vegas Supercross.
Out there.
Getting to Sam Boyd sucked.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
did.
I'm just going to call it like it is.
Oh,
It was
I've
a
been out there
drag.
several times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting out to Sam Boyd was a drag.
Yeah, I don't think it's not any easier to get out to Sam Boyd as it would be to get into T-Mobile. I think T-Mobile might be actually easier to get into where the Knights play. Allegiant Stadium, it'd be nice to have more parking and have a better organized system there. But again, it is so easy to get in. If you look at the RTC and how they get people in, the fact that the casinos are so close, the A's are going to have so much walk-up traffic. There's just so many casinos in that one little area. There'll be a lot of locals who will also go if they keep the ticket prices low enough
Absolutely.
and they put a winner out there. They're going to have to spend money on the team.
Yeah, I guess you got to actually be winning some
You
championships
do
and
well.
stuff.
You just got look. You got
You don't get the World Series in town unless you're in the World Series, right?
yeah. Look, and you're not going to get to the World Series every year, but you got to put a product out there that has a chance. I just happen to have the owner of the A's in my office today, John Fisher, and that's one of the things because the criticism he gets a lot of is you're cheap and you're not going to spend money on players, and so he broke down the economics for me about where they're at right now with their salary and what they plan on doing. He goes, look, I'm not going to build $1 billion stadium and not put more money into my players. That's the whole plan is to spend a little bit more. But right now he can't. I mean, he's got a $50 million a year salary, all those players and everybody, about $50 million. But of that, because he can't get enough sponsors, he can't get enough people out there to the Coliseum, he loses $25 million.
So you actually had John Fisher in your office today.
Today, yeah.
So once again, I'm a very lay person, but I try and put myself in his perspective. You got a professional sports team in Oakland. Not a lot of people chomping at the bit to go to Oakland and see a game.
Yeah,
That's
right.
got to be a challenge.
And
Even
it
if you
is.
have a winning team, a lot of people would be like, no.
Well, that's the thing. The economics is such that let's say he's spending $50 million right now, but he's losing $25 million, right? So if you were to put let's say $100 million, then he's going to lose $75 million because the revenue he's generating is only about $25 million a year. And so if you put $125 million into your team, how much are you losing?
Why do it?
100. And so that's his point. He's not going to be able to. That's why this move is really, really important. And we see that happen a lot with a lot of franchises. As soon as they move into a new ballpark and they start being able to invest in their ball players, it doesn't take long to turn a team around. And this is not a team, by the way, that has been in the basement as far as standings for a long time. They've always put a good product out there, despite the fact that their roster may not be the most well paid in baseball. It's still their management team has been very, very good. Billy Bean, obviously with Moneyball. If you've ever seen Moneyball, love that show.
Absolutely.
It's one of my favorites. My go-to once a year. Probably go see what I watch that. And so I'm really enthusiastic about our chances of getting the A's. Am I sure 100% that we're going to get them? No, because even if we do pass this bill, it's a business, and so he may actually have a better deal somewhere else, and go somewhere else. Now, I don't think it'll be another city outside of California. It'll be somewhere in the Bay Area, but there's a chance that he stays there. But I want to take that chance because I really like to see baseball in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I'm actually glad to see the franchises that are coming to Vegas.
Yeah,
They've always been decent franchises, but they're also the ones with history and flavor. I mean, the Oakland
Raiders. Raiders, baby.
There ain't no fans like Oakland Raiders fans, and there's
No.
the nitty gritty parts of those franchises. And
Have you been to a game yet?
No.
Okay, you need to come down there. I was privileged because I know the president of the Oakland I'm the president of the Las Vegas Raiders, and she's wonderful, and I tell you, when I took a tour of the facility, and she was showing me around, and they made sure that the history of the Raiders was still there. It's still prevalent and all the things that you can see on the walls, the artwork and whatnot. But then they also put a lot of the Las Vegas history in there.
Did they?
Yeah, so make sure there was a connection there. And I think the A's will do the same thing. I'd like to see them use sort of the neon museum down there, the neon sign.
It has to happen because both those
you gotta do it.
franchises, you have to have Al Davis, Lyle Alzado, all that history, Finley's Heroes, all that, because it comes with a lot of American history. You got to have it there.
Yep, yeah. Well, I was blown away because I remember I went to the groundbreaking of the Raiders, the Allegiant Stadium, and one of my friends here is a lobbyist. He's like, "Hey, I want you to meet my my babysitter when I was a kid. This is he and his wife took care of me when my parents were busy." And I'm like, "All right, I'll go meet your babysitter." His babysitter turns around, and I'm like, "Are you serious? Are you serious?" Because his babysitter just happened to be a quarterback for the Raiders. See if you can guess which one. His dad, this friend of mine, John, his dad played at Stanford. In Stanford, his dad was the center, and so this guy was the quarterback. Played for the Patriots in the NFL. Then he went to the Raiders, and then he won the Super Bowl.
What time frame? What are we talking about?
80s. He was there when Marcus Allen was in the back. He was in the backfield with him. Oh gosh.
So who was the quarterback back then, John?
I can't even think of a name.
Oh, you could think of
Because
it.
that's after Plunkett.
Nope, no, you got it right there.
That's Plunkett.
It's Plunkett.
Wow.
There you go.
So Jim Plunkett turns around and I'm
No
like,
way.
this is your babysitter. The nicest guy, right? He is just, talking about, I remember when John was, getting into all this kind of trouble, and, he was a good kid. But yeah, so Jim Plunkett was his, basically his dad's best friend, because they were, center quarterback. But that's what the Raiders bring. So when we had that groundbreaking, they bring their family back, and all of them come. I'm standing there next to a guy, and I'm trying to remember all these names, but there's a guy with a Hall of Fame ring on and a Super Bowl ring, and you're like, wow. I mean, I'm a sports guy, so I'm kind of blown away.
Right.
I don't spend a lot of time with a lot of famous people, and when I do, it's like, okay, that's nice, but I mean, I spend time with people. That's what I like to do. But having some of these folks here in town, and they bring them all back, and they bring that history back with them, and it kind of full circle brings back the importance of having a team like that here in the Las Vegas area. It's
Well, and
tremendous.
that alludes to what I'm talking about what Vegas or what the Raiders and A's bring is, Plunkett's, he's won a Super Bowl, definitely, that. He's a blue collar player.
That's right.
I mean,
He is.
if you know what I mean by that. No
Lyle
flash.
Zato,
No, these guys are blue collar players. They're there for business, and that it. And they're not flashy, and they're not this. They're just-
Politnikov.
yeah.
I know. I mean, I grew up a Dallas Cowboy fan because
No, there's some flash. That doesn't qualify for blue collar.
yeah, it doesn't. I grew up a Dallas Cowboy fan, but I still knew who the Raiders were. I mean, everybody knew who the Raiders were.
For sure.
And so, long story short, I was a Cowboy fan because my stepfather came back from Vietnam, and Roger Staubach had visited Vietnam, and he was a Navy guy.
Yep.
And so my stepfather, yes, he was in the Army, but before he was in the Army, he was actually in the Navy. He got out of the Navy and went into the Army. Very rarely do you see that. So, but Roger was visiting Vietnam and handed him a football with his signature on it. My stepfather's not a big, huge sports guy, so he brought it home and he gave it to me.
You have a Roger Staubach signed football?
Well, I like to say I do, but I don't, because I wanted another. I went out and played with it, and some kid just decided.
Are you
to-
serious?
He stole it from me.
There-
I could
you
never
know,
prove that he stole it from me, but I know. I'm pretty
There
sure
are
this
not a
guy-
lot of things I would actually say to you, Scott, but actually, I think you need to be beat for that.
Yeah, it's like that kid from the Statlock gang who comes in and takes the ball and Babe Ruth
You're
or
right.
something.
Baby Ruthie or
Yeah,
something?
Baby Ruth. The Sultan of SWAT. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, the Babe. So I went out there with Roger Staubach football, and I got it lost.
Oh my
I don't
God,
have
that's
it anymore.
funny.
I would love to have it, because Roger Staubach is still a hero of mine. I think you look at the work that he's done afterwards. There's not a single teammate that will tell you anything bad about Roger Staubach, because that's all he does is he cares about people, and I think that that's kind of the way I model myself after guys like him. But yeah, but the Raiders were that workhorse, right? That blue collar work.
To go back to that, I don't know what's the better story. I don't know what would be better, the football on your mantle or the story of being able to play smear the queer with a Roger Staubach football.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's quite a story.
Those were the days. That's what we did back then too. That's exactly what we were playing.
I know.
That's exactly what we were playing. We're just knock them dead, right? It was a free for all. Everybody's knocking everybody
With a
down.
signed Roger Staubach football. That's
Yep.
hilarious.
Yeah. So if Roger actually watches this someday, or somebody hears this and knows Roger, here's a young kid still at heart who would like a football on the mantle with a Roger Staubach signature on it.
You'd take one, huh?
Oh, I'd take one. in a heartbeat. He's still a huge hero, and that's why I still like the Cowboys. I've never wavered. I'm one of those guys who just cannot waver from the team that they root for.
I have my biases. That era of Cowboys qualifies as blue collar.
Yeah.
That was back in an era of football. That was in the era of Texas football where you had Roger Staubach, Earl Campbell,
DePew and
dudes.
yeah. Oh, it was amazing. So that I'm really loving the diversification of our economy right now, and having the A's come would be great. We'll find out in the next couple of days if that's going to happen or not. We'll find out if we get enough votes in the Senate, and then eventually enough votes in the Assembly.
And then it's up to the A's. So
And then it's
that's
up to the A's after that. After we confirm if we do the money that they'll get, then of course they'll have a decision on whether or not they're going to come. I suspect they will, because I just can't see anybody passing up the opportunity to be on the Strip. They're going to put a Major League Baseball store right next to them. You go to any place. I don't care if it's Minnesota. You go to Minneapolis. You go to Target Center and you watch a baseball game. You go into the team store and you're only going to find Minnesota stuff. Maybe a little bit of Yankee, Minnesota, if there's a pen or something like that. But what they're going to do here is they're going to put a store that has paraphernalia from every team, so that all these fans that are coming from all over the place, even when it's not baseball season, they're going to be able to walk into a store and find something that, that has their team logo on it.
Las Vegas is a brilliant destination for any franchise because you have people from all over the world.
Yep.
Tourism, going to go in, buy the stuff, do all that kind of stuff.
Put a stadium there that deserves to be there. It's just brilliant. It's a beautiful piece of architecture, and people will come. And having it at Tropicana, if you think about it, if you have the blimp up there and they've got the right angle, they'll be able to see T-Mobile, Allegiant Stadium, and the new A Stadium all in one shot.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. Looking forward to that.
So I want to be respectful of your time. One more quick. So what's on the horizon? I mean, you're kind of coming out. Your term's about up. What's in the future for Scott Hammond?
I don't know. I have a feeling I'm just not done with all this stuff yet, because I could easily be drawn back in and work. I'd love to work with the governor. Lombardo's got he's got a lot of years left here. I don't just think he'll be done in one term. I think this is a guy that's energetic and getting things done. He'll be here for 2 terms. And so if he needs help, I'll be more than happy to come back and help him out with whatever he needs. I don't anticipate a run in politics. I just, some people will suggest, well, why not Congress? The reason why I wouldn't go to Congress, it's a long ways away, and I have really started loving spending time with my teenage daughters. They've got a lot of activities going on, and I've enjoyed it. I like to be around them, and it's hard on my wife, especially. She used to always think, it's hard when the kids were younger and I was up here, but she can handle it. She loved it. She could do it, but she thought, oh, it'll be easier as they get older. And she said it's been the opposite.
Nope.
She's, times where she's like, I need you around. I need you. You need to talk to you need to talk to your daughters. I love having, my daughter was online learning this year. And so she came up for weeks. She's up here again. I've enjoyed that. And so I just don't think running for anything that takes me away from Las Vegas or Nevada in general. We'll just say Nevada is, I think it's just out of the question right now.
It seems messy over there in DC too. I don't know.
I don't know if it's worth, I don't know if you can get anything done or work on anything worth. I just don't think they'll let you get it done. And so I don't think you can move the needle. That'd be tough.
That sucks that comment even comes up.
Yeah.
Very respectable about this decision. I've raised girls, and when they're young, it is what it is. They move into teenage. That's when you need to be there. That's actually the most vital time.
Yeah. And I've got a 12-year-old, so it'll be a while before I'm done.
Yeah, mine's 11, so we're right around. Although I have one that's 38 now, too. I got them pretty spread out.
I think she's 33, Mike.
Oh, is she 33?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, John.
She'll be happy to know that you just increased her age by 5 years.
Right? No, I'll be flogged for that. So, but I make that mistake with my own
And rightfully
age.
so. I think you should be flogged for that.
I should be.
You shouldn't add years to a girl's age.
We'll make sure she watches this.
Yeah, that's my personality. I
that's-
hardly know how old I am these days.
And look, I could easily be in your position, because I think my wife and I, we were married right around 24, right before we were 25, and I think she got pregnant when she was 25. The summer after she turned 25, so she was 25 in May. Yeah, it was that summer, and we lost that child after 4 months.
Ooh.
Yeah, and so she lost the child in 4 months later. So that would have been so we would have been somewhere around seven, about 30, 31
Yeah.
right now. That child would be 31.
My wife and I actually made a conscious decision. We had them all pretty much grown up and out of the house, and we actually had to do some medical things, and we completely did it on purpose. It's like let's take another run at it. Let's do it.
Yeah,
And
you
so
you made that conscious decision.
we did.
We got a phone call. We got the phone call, and basically said, hey, this is the situation, and my daughter met your family, and she wants to know if you'll adopt her baby, and we did, and so that's why she's only 12 is because that one came around. Matter of fact, her birthday was this past Sunday,
Right.
and when I found out, when we decided to do it, she was supposed to be born in June. We knew that the session would be ending, or the session would end, and then we'd go up to Alaska for the birth. And she came a couple weeks early, about 10 days early. And I was on the floor of the assembly. It was my first session. We're working on a Saturday because it's almost the end of session. And all of a sudden, I get a text message. I look down. It's like, "Hey, your baby's coming now." And I'm freaking out. I'm
Right.
like, "Oh my gosh!" But we don't have tickets. We didn't even, we're not ready for this. I mean, we were, but we weren't. And so I'm like, "Okay, well, just keep me up to date. What's going on?" And then about 30 minutes later, you know, she's almost here. And so I remember asking for a 1 minute recess that I don't even know if I said it right. I just left, and I didn't get a recess. I think they voted on 2 bills while I was in the hallway calling my wife saying, "You got to get a ticket now, and you got to get up to Alaska." And so that's when I found out that Issa was coming is by phone. And so my wife was up there within about 5 hours, and she was handed the baby, and we've had her ever since.
What a ride, man. That's cool.
Yeah. So that's how we did it. We didn't consciously do it, but here we are, old people with young kid.
That's weird that we actually had some things where we had to do. We were told it couldn't be done.
So you just wanted to buck the, you just wanted to say, yeah.
My
prove them
wife
wrong.
was just a miracle. It was actually we had some OBs just saying, nah, and you might invest a bunch of money in vitro, and she had to do another surgery that was just some minor stuff that I won't get too in, and it was kind of like, hey, because she had her tubes cut when she was young after her first two kids, and I just kind of like, hey, once you put those 2 weeks later, she's pregnant.
2 weeks. Mike's knocking on the door. Yeah. 2 weeks later.
And they told us that it just wasn't going to happen. They said, you can do this, but it just ain't going to happen. And they were wrong. And Emma's 11 now and beautiful and giving us lots of grief, just like we hoped for.
Well, and the funny thing is, people always say you have a story, an adoption story for all your kids or story. And I said, yeah, for all of our kids, because that right there that you just gave us is a story
Mm-hmm.
about the birth, right? About, the coming into this world. And I think I think kids like to hear that kind of stuff. I think they like to hear about these things. They enjoy knowing the set of circumstances surrounding their entrance into the world.
And there were people here purposely inviting you in.
Yeah. Because I know Issa, will ask questions. Sometimes, with adoption, some kids struggle a little bit. But what we've always told our kids is you were always meant to be in our home.
Right.
You just have to come a different way. And in some of our kids, like I remember our oldest daughter, her birth mother said, look, if it wasn't for Olivia, I would have been lost. I was going down the wrong path. I was doing a lot of things I shouldn't have been doing. She saved my life. But I knew she was never supposed to be in my home, which is a hard realization to come to when you're that age. She was a young mother. And it was really cool because, she, as soon as she saw our picture with our son, I think Tomas was, he must have been, what is he, 23 now? She's 18, so about 5 years old. And she said that as soon as she saw that picture, she started having dreams every night where she saw the baby playing with Tomas. She's like, I just saw them. They were like the best of friends, which, by the way, is exactly what has happened over the years.
That's how it's gone.
Those two are like thick as thieves. They sit there and they laugh and they laugh and they laugh. They'll tell jokes and they'll laugh with each other. they're just as comfortable as they were meant to always be together, And so it's not hard to see how families can be families like that, and that's the way our family's always been. We just, our kids came to us a little different way, but each one of them had a story.
That's a beautiful thing. There's things you can see on you. When I first met you at A to Zen, and she was with you, your presence as a father is noticed, you can just tell you're purposely very present, and that's a big deal.
And I hope that I'm glad it is, because I really want my kids to know that I couldn't live without them.
Right.
But again, it was one of those things that I've been to a lot of stores here in Carson City, and I've been here for many years, right? Coming up here, if you think about the number of months that I've spent up here, and you put it all together, I've lived in Carson City now about 2.5 years of my life, maybe a little bit more than 2.5 years of my life.
Right.
And I'd never been in the store.
Oh.
Passed it by, and then I remember telling Issa, I said, we need one more. There's one more store I really want to go see. I haven't been there yet. And I said, and it says records on the outside, so that's a good sign that we're going to see some records.
Good sign.
And when we came in, I just felt like, okay, this is the place. And a matter of fact, I was with somebody today, Lisa. Excuse me. She came in and we were talking, and she just loves records. We sat down and we listened to Aretha Franklin. Matter of fact, she was just talking and we were listening to Aretha Franklin.
Was it the one that Lauren dug out the other day?
That's exactly the one that's live in Paris. And she said, "Oh man," she goes, "There's one place I really like to go to when I'm here in Carson City." And I said, "Where is it?" She goes, "I go to this place called A to Zen." And I go,
Yeah.
And I said, "Did you know they have an open mic night every Friday?" She goes, "No." I said, "Are you going to be here Friday?" She said, "Yeah." And I'm like, "All right, you're coming."
Yeah. I don't know, actually. I always say, I got to get better at marketing, but there's a secret spot in me that likes being that hidden gem.
It's organic, right? It's like
Right.
you just it develops that organically, where people just hear about you.
Yeah. So, I mean, I always tell myself, I need to put, but I don't know. It's actually kind of perfect the way it is, in my opinion. And I could probably do a little more to market it, but I don't know. I get stuck. John, I get a lot of people encouraging, you need to pull out ads. And I don't know. I like it to just do it the way it does it. Just probably does not make a lot of business sense, but.
Right. Yeah. Well, our type, we're not very good at business. I know I'm not. You're better at business than I am, but I could be a lot better. You could be probably a lot better, but we also just like it. I don't know. I just like this. This makes me feel comfortable. The fact that you have all these people who know about you, who come, they have that feeling, and then they go, I want that feeling again. I want to have that connection with someplace, and then they come back and they get it again and again here. And so I think it's wonderful.
It is. And it drives me not unlike like you. And some parts of business I actually am very not good at. But as far as a trade-off, I'd rather have an existence that's like you described, being in the Senate.
Yeah.
I get to connect with people, and I wouldn't trade it.
That's the best thing. Look, there's a lot of people in the world that you're never going to meet. So enjoy the ones you do.
Absolutely. So you probably need to get back to the floor.
Yeah, got to get back to that building in case something happens.
I very much appreciate your time. Thank you.
It's been wonderful.
We're good to go. You have any questions for Scott or anything, John?
No, I'm just amazed at the entire conversation. It was great.
Yeah, it's been good.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Two people talking.
I got to go get Emma.